Okay,
All
the
right.
meeting is now recording, and I'll turn it over to you, Chair Howard.
Thank you. I'd like to call the meeting to order. It's now 8:16. I am Gwen Howard, Chairperson of the Metropolitan Utilities District Board of Directors. Now, for the second time in its history, this board is conducting a virtual board meeting due to the health and safety threats and challenges presented by the coronavirus 19. We continue to abide by the directives issued by our federal, state, and local officials to avoid congregating in groups greater than 10 members and to maintain social distancing while also continuing to carry out the duties and responsibilities delegated to this board by statute. All board directors are appearing remotely for today's meeting. In order to ensure compliance with the Open Meetings Act, access to the board proceedings for the public and the media is being afforded via a telephone connection to this video conference. That telephone is located in the lobby of the district's former headquarters at 1723 Harney Street. In addition, one of the board directors, Jim Bagley, is on site at that location, appearing remotely from the former board room at 1723 Harney Street. I would also like to mention that this meeting is being recorded. For that reason, I would ask my colleagues on the board to try not to talk over one another, as that may affect the clarity of the audio recording. The recording will capture audio and video from all participants and will be uploaded to the district's website later today. All presenters at today's meeting are appearing remotely as well. I will ask each presenter to please mute their microphones and disable their cameras until they are presenting. I will now proceed to introductory comments from the district's general counsel, Mark Mendenhall, which will be followed by a modified safety briefing provided by Vice President of Safety and Security, Shane Hunter. Mr. Mendenhall.
Great, thank you. Good morning. This meeting, again, as Chair Howard has indicated, is being held virtually using the Cisco WebEx platform. It is being held pursuant to the Governor's Executive Order 20-03, which expanded and relaxed some of the requirements of the Open Meetings Act. To remain in compliance with the Open Meetings Act, the district has gone to lengths to ensure public and media access to the meeting. For example, Chair Howard has indicated at 1723 Harney, there is a phone, but I believe we've expanded that to include now a computer monitor, and so members of the public that are in the lobby at 1723 Harney are able to see you all, just as a few of you can see each other using this. And in addition, Director Bagley has been kind enough to be present in the old boardroom at 1723 Harney. And so at the appropriate time, when Chair Howard opens the meeting up for public comments, employees Sophia Winfrey and Ron Schell are available downtown to ensure that members of the public will be able to step up to that phone and have their comments be heard. And I believe that is all. Thank you, Chair Howard.
Thank you. Now to Vice President Shane Hunter.
Good morning. Shane Hunter, Vice President of Safety and Security. The traditional safety briefing is being changed to match the contemporary crisis our nation's experiencing. The most important safety measure we can all take in our effort to protect our coworkers, our friends, and our families is to continue to aggressively practice the big three. Wash our hands often, do not touch our face, and maintain social distancing in conjunction with wearing a mask.
You want me to turn this so it'll pick you up? Okay.
This concludes the safety briefing.
That concludes the introduction. Mary, could you do roll call, please?
Bagley?
Here.
Cook? Here. Friend?
Here.
Frost?
Here.
Gowan? Here. Howard? Here. Kavanaugh?
Here.
Thank you. And now to construction and operations. Mr. DeBoer, please review capital expenditures.
Yes, good morning. My name is Dave DeBoer, and I'm the Chief Operations Officer, and we'll be overviewing the capital expenditures letter and the finals letter. So under tab 5 is the capital expenditures letter. We have 5 projects, 200 system improvements, and 300 buildings, plants, and equipment. I'll be highlighting 3 of those projects. The first project is item 1, right at the top of the page, for $73,700 for a new 4-inch gas main in Ed Gomez Drive. This gas main supports the installation of a new boiler used for a steam sanitizing process needed for European beef, of all things. The annual load is about 150,000 decatherms, which equates to about 1,900 therms, or about 1,900 homes on an annual basis. At MUD, we follow a GRM policy, and what that policy does is allows us to grab some of the, or to recover part of the incremental margin from annual gas sales, and then apply that margin to recover the costs for putting in the main. If we can recover those costs over a 10-year period, then the main is installed at no cost to the developer. And that's how most of our subdivisions go into play. I think this month, Corey's got 3 water projects for main extensions. There's no gas mains. Essentially, that policy, that GRM policy, is how we install gas main services and meters in most of our subdivisions. So kind of a cool policy, and in this particular example, it pays back in less than a year. The second item I want to highlight is under buildings, plants, and equipment. It's item 1 for $3.8 million. It's the expenditure for rehabilitation of Basin 2. This is a Florence project and is part of phase 3 of our capital improvement plan. The expenditure includes repairing the concrete on the basin floor and the walls, replacing the sluice gates, and replacing valve control lines. With your approval, this project will start in a couple of weeks as we get a team of divers. They're out of Liquid Engineering. We're going to measure those sluice gates underwater, and then we'll be installing that. All that rehab work and those gates will be installed in the fall. The third item I want to touch on is item 2. It's a $289,000 ratification to purchase 24 travel trailers for use during the April isolation of water treatment plants. This expenditure was to support our employees as we isolated our plants from community spread of the COVID-19 virus. We were there for, we identified a team of about 24 people, and those personnel were living there during that period of time, 24 hours a day. And these campers provided the necessary sleeping arrangements to make that stay much more sustainable. Any questions on the capital expenditure letter?
Dave DeBoer, this is Dave Friend. I've got a couple questions about item number 2 under building, plants, and equipment. So what's the plan post need for these items for use, or what are we going to do with them after we no longer need them?
That's a great question. When we went into the April meeting, at that time, we looked at renting trailers. And the payback, the cost of renting a travel trailer, was about $1,000 a week, maybe a little bit more. And so we knew at that time, during a 4 to 6 week stay of these travel trailers, that it would easily be offset by the cost to resell them. We also knew at that time that there's a reasonable likelihood of us possibly needing them again in the fall or during the winter. And so we certainly wanted to have them on hand as we moved into this winter. So the plan right now is to make sure we maintain the access of those trailers as we kind of move through the winter and see what kind of rebound or what kind of vaccines may or may not develop. And I would anticipate as we come towards the end of winter, make a decision on what our next steps are. More than likely, I would anticipate us to sell them back to the general populace.
What are there, 8 at each plant?
So we had 24 employees, 1 trailer for each employee. There were 6 employees at Platte South. There were 11 at Platte West and 7 at Florence. So each one, they're not exactly broke up equally. We had some revolving personnel that were out at Flat West and some system controllers that push those numbers a little higher.
And these will be stored on site in the summer?
Correct.
I think I asked you this earlier, but just to clarify for me, the employees that we have that were isolated and stayed inside the plants, and some of these employees that are out there as well for a day at a time, I assume they get paid overtime, and how's that all work for their pay? And the ones that were inside the plant, were they strictly volunteers?
That's a great question, Director McGowan. We put, Mark Mendenhall and his team put together a memorandum of understanding that we worked through. And in that memorandum of understanding, if we'll talk about a base week having 7 times 12, 168 hours in a base week, the employees were understood that they're supposed to work their normal shift, or if it's an 8-hour day, it might be a 40-hour shift. If they're on a 12-hour day, it might be a 70 or an 84-hour shift. So for those periods of time, or for the first 40, it was that standard pay. And so for the remaining hours of that week, and we'll use the 40-hour work week, so it'd be 128 hours. So for those remaining 128 hours, they were paid time and a half. And in every case, all 24 employees during those 3 tours. So we moved through 3 tours over that little over a month of stay. In every case, those employees were volunteers.
Okay, thank you.
Hey, Dave, can you describe for us what the accommodations were for these employees as they stayed on the plant?
Yeah, when we initially started with Tour 1, we put together inflatable mattresses and bedding and sheets within the actual plants. And during that first tour, we mobilized to purchase these travel trailers. And at that point, as we moved into the second tour, so it'd be the second week of isolation, we mobilized the 24 trailers in between Tour 1 and Tour 2 to stay, for the employees to stay in those travel trailers. There were 3 different types of travel trailers. The smaller one was a teardrop shape. It was about 15 feet long. It had they call it a travel queen. I don't think it's the queen that we're familiar with, but at least a camper queen in each one of them. The remaining, I think there was 14 of the teardrops, and there were 10 of, I'll call them 20-footers. And the employees stayed in each one of those travel trailers on site during that period of time.
Thank you.
Mr. DeBoer, would you like to make the acceptance of contracts at this time?
We can. So moving into tab 6 is the acceptance of contracts and payments of final estimates. We had a couple of small change orders, but the actual prices for most of these are all in line with the unit price bids. The one project I want to highlight is item 1 for Q3. It's right at the top. It's the very first one. This project, it replaced 7 miles of cast iron main and came in at about $213,000 higher. The increase in costs were all unit costs, and they were due primarily to an underestimation of some of the restoration along that 7-mile length of main that we installed. So these are neighborhoods that have services and mains that get tore up in the street. And so the unit costs associated with the restoration of bringing the earthwork back to grade, the concrete, and the seating added about $213,000 to that project. Other than that, the other finals all look good, and work is continuing in and around the Omaha area. So it's pretty impressive what some of these contractors are doing during this event. Any questions on the acceptance of contracts and payments, the final estimates?
Nope.
Mr. Zellers, would you review the bids on the materials and contracts?
I sure will. Good morning. John Zellers, Director of Purchasing. Bids on materials and contracts may be found under tab 7. There are 2 items that I'm going to discuss this morning. The first is the ratification of the 24 trailers that Mr. DeBoer spoke about. I won't go into any more detail other than we did get 3 bids, and we accepted the lowest bid from Leach Camper Sales. Is there any further questions on that particular item? All right, we'll move on to the next item, which can also be found on page 2. Only 1 bid was received for the rehabilitation of Basin 2 at the Florence Water Treatment Plant that Mr. DeBoer spoke about as well. The contracting market for these type of public projects continues to be tight. As part of the bidding process, and is common for large projects, a pre-bid meeting was held in which only 2 contractors attended. In an effort to gain more interest and potential bids, prospective contractors were contacted, and a second pre-bid meeting was scheduled. Even after the additional efforts, only 1 bid was received. The bid was evaluated by our consultant Olson Associates and our internal project team. The sole bid was received from McGill Restoration. Last year, McGill was a successful bidder for the rehabilitation of Basin 1. Their bid for Basin 2 represents the cost for the work conducted on Basin 1. We and Olson Associates believes that the bid is a quality bid and rebidding will not generate more contractor interest. McGill Restoration's bid is recommended for approval. And just as a quick side note, the board may recall in March approving a contract for the procurement of 7 slide gates that will be used for this project. That's all I planned on discussing this morning, and would be happy to answer any questions. All right, thank you.
Mr. O'Brien, would you please review the main extensions?
Surely. Good morning. Corey O'Brien, Vice President of Engineering and Construction. Behind tab 8, you'll find our main extensions letter this month. We have 3 water main extensions this month. The total impact of our projects are 87 single residence lots, 1 multi-residence lot, 2 commercial lots, and 1 school lot. If you'll turn to page 2 of the letter, I'd speak briefly to you about items 1 and 2. Item 1 is a main extension to provide domestic water and fire protection to 1 single residence, 1 multi-residence, and 2 commercial lots in Evert Place subdivision at 192nd and Harney. This is a relatively small project consisting of about 2,100 feet of 8-inch pipe and 40 feet of 6-inch pipe. I bring it to your attention just because there's a 150-foot piece of the 8-inch main which will not be installed at this time because the development will not be ready for the installation of the main. Therefore, we are requiring the developer to pay a firm price of $22,500 for that 150-foot section, which will be installed at a later date. And that firm price does take into account that the main will be installed in the future as opposed to the rest of the project currently. Item number 2 is a main extension to provide domestic water service and fire protection to 86 single residence lots in Legend Trail subdivision at 222nd and Q Street. As a point of reference, our Platte West water treatment plant is at about 216th and Q Street on the north side of Q. This development is also on the north side of Q, stretching from 222nd to 228th Street. So it's about a half mile west of our Platte West water treatment plant. This is a larger subdivision development consisting of interior mains as well as 2 segments of approach mains. I'm talking with you about it this morning because the developer has decided to install the interior mains under our WCD policy, which means that the developer will be contracting for the installation of those mains, and that is about 12,500 feet of 8 and 6-inch mains, so it's a fairly large subdivision. The 2 pieces of approach mains will be contracted and the installation done through the district. The first one is about 1,200 feet of 16-inch main in 222nd Street. The second piece is about 1,300 feet of 12-inch main in 228th Street. So not terribly unusual. We do, I would guess, 3 to 6 projects a year we see go through our WCD policy. So not terribly unusual, but this is a larger development, and so wanted to bring that to your attention. Are there any questions?
Corey, this is Tim Kavanaugh. Are we going to be able to serve them gas as well as water? Do we know that yet?
I don't know that at this point, Tim, but I can certainly find out.
Okay. What's the closest we have in the area? I mean, we're not really encroaching on anybody else's territory there, I don't think.
Not to my knowledge. I would have to pull up a map to see exactly where our mains are, Director Kavanaugh. I will feed that back to you as well.
Yeah, it's a nice size subdivision there that would be nice if we could serve that as well.
Agreed.
Hey, Corey, when you send something to Tim, would you copy the rest of us?
Sure, I sure will.
Okay, thanks, Corey.
Are there any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. O'Brien. And now we'll move along to Bonnie Steen. If you could review employee and or salary increases and ratifications, please.
Sure. Good morning. Bonnie Savine, Vice President, Human Resources. I'll begin by recapping employee counts for the end of April 2019 and 2020. There were 805 regular full-time employees and 6 regular part-time employees as of April 30th, 2019. That's a total of 811 regular employees. In 2020, there were 818 regular full-time, 3 regular part-time, total of 821. We also have 2 temporary employees at the end of April this year. Behind tab 9, you will find the wage or salary increases and ratifications letter. Human Resources is recommending the Board of Directors approve wage or salary increases for 14 employees this month. 10 OAC employees are being promoted. 4 of those are being promoted into OAC jobs through the posting process, and 6 are being promoted via natural job progression within their job family. In addition, we have 4 OAC employees that are being promoted into SPA jobs as well. Under Section 5 of that letter, there is a recommendation to ratify the salary of an SPA new hire. The employee is working in the Information Technology Division, and the salary is within the approved salary grade for the position. Any questions on that letter?
Bonnie, just a quick question. I asked this quite a bit, I guess. How many vacancies do we have right now?
We are currently working 22 job requisitions, and those are in various stages throughout the recruitment process, and some may be for more than one position.
Okay. Are those posted on the internet or just internally or what?
It's a combination of those of internal and external. So right now, I don't believe we have any active external postings.
Okay. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hey, Bonnie, it's Jim. Really quick, to add to what Mike asked, there has not been any, just for the record, there's not been any hiring freeze put in place as a result of the virus, correct?
What I would say to that is we are continuing to look at every job, every requisition. We have a process in place that allows for the vice president, the senior vice president to provide the reason for need to fill a position. So whether it's a summer position or a regular position, we're going through a process right now to identify when is the right time to fill each of those positions.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Hearing no other questions, Connie, can you please update the retirement plan employee contribution rate?
Absolutely. As noted in the letter behind tab 10, The Human Resources Department is recommending a modification to the employee contribution section within the district's retirement plan document. The recommendation is to revise Article 8, Section 1, which is contributions by employees, to update those contribution rates to reflect the approved contribution percentages previously approved with effective dates between 2018 and 2020. Those are outlined in the letter. And are there any questions? Okay. And finally, I will move on to tab 11, which is titled Promotion of Vice President, Procurement and Enterprise Services. A promotional salary increase is recommended for John A. Zellers due to a job reevaluation. Supervision of the Purchasing Department and Stores Division report to Mr. Zellers as Director of Purchasing. Recently, the supervision of the district's meter services and facilities divisions were also assigned to this position. The position has been reevaluated and retitled as Vice President, Procurement and Enterprise Services. In addition, or in view of the additional responsibilities, we are recommending the President be authorized to increase the salary of Mr. Zellers as outlined in the letter behind tab 11. Are there questions at this time?
Bonnie, what is the percent increase for that?
5%, which is the SPA policy promotional increase amount.
Well, John, you got a lot on your plate, but I'm confident you can do it. Congratulations.
Second.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that.
John, I think you've done a terrific job. Well deserved. I'm really, really happy.
I appreciate that, and I truly look forward to continuing my service at the district in this capacity.
Good to have you.
Thank you.
Any other questions or?
And to see if the board members have any further comments.
Comments on what, when?
Do you have any further comments? Do you have anything else that you want to discuss or add?
Yeah, I have a couple that we might throw out now because we have some time. I assume Joe Shafford's there or Sue's there somehow. I'm just asking, I'm curious now that we're into May, and I know we just got our February financial reports, which doesn't show the financial impacts of COVID-19. But have we seen anything on the customer service desk of people calling in, an increase of people not being able to pay? What's been our reaction on the customer service interaction as a result of COVID-19?
Question.
This is Sue. Sorry, I'm with Mark. So.
Okay, that's fine.
The call volume, as you know, is down, and there are certainly customers calling in for a wide variety of reasons. We're anticipating that kind of call to come in the future. We haven't seen a big spike in that yet. We did recently start a few outbound calls to try and curb that, so that the call volume we get a little bit ahead of it. But we're monitoring it, but we haven't seen an awful lot of calls like that.
That's interesting. I'm glad to hear that. And I was thinking about it. I was thinking, well, April and May, they're shoulder months, so they're not cold, they're not hot, so the bills aren't that big. But we probably have a lot of people on the budget plan that pay the same amount every month.
Correct.
Okay, so we haven't seen a increase in calls at this point.
No, it's remained low. I think from April this year versus April last year, we're down 27% in call volume.
Wow, that's surprising.
Say, Mike, Joe Shafford.
Yeah.
I can add a couple of things to the comments to what Sue said. Obviously, we're monitoring this very closely by looking not only at the extent to which accounts receivables are current, but also customers that are in dunning, meaning they have $300 past due. And as you might imagine, those statistics are eroding because of what's going on. To this point, cash balances remain very strong, but what we're doing, there's no question it's going to erode our cash. I think unemployment for Nebraska right now is at 10%, forecasted to go to 15%. That doesn't necessarily mean they won't be paying their bills since they're receiving unemployment in many cases. But since we are not levying late fees and not doing shutoffs, there are probably times when people are prioritizing bills such that our bills may get pushed back a little bit from a priority standpoint. So we're doing several things to prepare for what is anticipated, meaning we're doing a comprehensive review of our capital expenditures to identify those items that we can defer. We're also reviewing all professional services / consulting that is in the budget for the same reason. What can we defer? Obviously, travel is off the table. That's not a large item for the district, but and then to tag on to what Bonnie said, a question around hiring. Again, I wouldn't characterize it as a freeze because it's not a freeze, but it is a very high level of scrutiny on hiring, both new positions as well as backfills. And one of the filter questions, since this condition, since the financial impact will continue to develop on a month-to-month basis, is, yeah, we agree the position is necessary, but is it possible to perhaps delay the hire by a quarter as we continue to see this unfold? So we've got a lot of things, kind of at the ready to act on.
Well, good. I'm glad to hear you're taking that proactive position on capital expenditures and everything, because I got to believe that the bill payment's going to start hitting us with a lot of lags, just based on what you have on TV. And, if a customer's late with a bill, do we call them or anything, or do we just next month send out another bill with a cumulative amount?
So, Mr. McGowan, this is Mark Doyle. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
We've a few things that I want to underline that's been said by either Sue or Joe is that the fact that customers aren't calling isn't necessarily good news because they aren't facing shutoffs or late fees or the things that generally encourage people to call us. So we've been talking about an outbound calling campaign for a long time. We've done some of that, but after this pandemic hit, we used it in two very specific instances. The first being calling every customer that we know of, starting with current and working back, that have been disconnected to make sure that they weren't in any life-threatening situation because they don't have water and natural gas, and that's been a very good program. And we found some customers that needed some help, and that worked out of Stephanie Mueller's area. Now today in the call center, Sue's group, along with Shallon and the whole team, are outbound calling to remind people that might need some assistance that we need to have discussions. And I'm told that that's been a very good program. So to take advantage of the time and actually make calls to our customers has been very valuable. Number three, I'm going to try to share.
Can I interrupt you? You said
Yes.
we call them to make sure we can provide assistance. Is it just financial assistance?
Reconnection.
Okay.
I want to be very specific about that. We're not going to have people disconnected that are in any sort of peril during this. Now, when you look at the number of disconnections that have occurred, a lot of times they don't get reconnected because the property has possibly been vacated. There are, to not reconnect your services, something else is usually going on, but we don't want to take it for granted and think that there aren't people living with disconnected services at this time when we're saying to wash your hands every time you make a move. So I think that was a very humanitarian effort, and I'm very proud that we did that, and I hope you all agree. I know you do. Number three, do you mind if I share a document with you real quickly, since we have a minute?
Go ahead.
Okay, tell me if, can you see this?
Yes, I can.
Okay, I may need Joe Shafford's help, but the AWWA sponsored a webinar after surveying many utilities across the country, and as unemployment rises, the customer segments that pay or don't pay on time. If you look at the graph with the red and green Christmas colors, pay on time, pay with assistance, aren't paying. Those that pay on time, and this really stands out to us, even though we're not getting calls, they could, probably it's not going to be the same here in the metropolitan area, but across the country, the trend will be those that normally pay in full and pay on time may decrease more than 25%. Those who will need reminders and assistance currently could increase by 6%. Those who stop paying may increase by nearly 20%. Now, again, this is a sample across the country, but as Joe said, we're not only analyzing and reporting on all of our receivables, aging receivables like we all get when we don't make payments. We're also watching the trends nationally through the AWWA, and we aren't to a hiring freeze. We aren't to the things that most companies have already had to do, but we are talking about it and analyzing all of our options as our receivables and our revenue may go down. So I just thought you might like to see these graphs because they're very telling. Anything to add, Joe?
No, yeah, and we've been, to tag on to Mark's comments, we've been trying to monitor what is happening throughout the industry, and it is difficult because each state is experiencing, slightly different impacts depending upon what is occurring from an unemployment standpoint. The other thing that makes this a little bit challenging in terms of predicting is there are a lot of programs being discussed on top of what's already occurred directed at rent and utility assistance. So obviously many moving parts. So about the only thing we can do is monitor the age of receivables and actual cash balances and what projections are relative to unemployment. But that's why we feel like we need to have several things at the ready that we can pull the trigger on, and we're in the process of compiling a very comprehensive list as a response.
Well, I applaud you and team, Mark, the whole district and the employees for managing their expenses and everything. Fortunately, the district is in a good cash position to move forward in this, but at the same point in time, we don't want to depend totally on our cash reserves. I'm very pleased, Joe, that you're looking at capital expenditures. We're being very conservative on the hiring and watching our costs because it's probably going to get tougher before it gets easier.
Yeah, without question. And the duration of this event, based on various forecasters, is going to be quite lengthy.
Well, thank you.
I have to commend my colleagues throughout the district. It's been a great team effort as we're all, figuring out how to respond to this. So people have been incredibly responsive and supportive, obviously, of our efforts.
Thank you.
This is Jim. A question for Mark Mendenhall. Mark, with the allotted $150 million coming into Douglas County, has the district or any officials from the district had any conversations with the county about perhaps getting some of that money that's coming through the county?
I'd like to take that question if you don't mind, Mr. Begley. This is Mark.
Absolutely, Mark.
Doyle.
Mr. Doyle, go ahead.
So I spoke with Commissioner Duda a couple weeks ago about that money, and of course, Claire is working with Governor Ricketts on the money that's been allocated to the county and that's been allocated to the state. The initial discussion was, the first question was, does MUD only serve Douglas County? And as you all know, the answer to that is no. So that put us in a different category as far as the county was concerned. And I'm only speaking about a conversation with Commissioner Duda. I don't know what the real process is behind that money, if there's a committee or how it's being allocated. But we haven't given up. Rick Kubat is also working legislatively to see if there are any other any other aspects of this that we're missing. So we're not done. That wasn't a final answer. But one of the criteria for the money is that it must be directly related to pandemic expenses. So I did share with Commissioner Duda that we have some very specific expenses, and one of them was the isolation at the water plants and the campers that you saw. We were at a run rate of about 250 to 300,000 a week, if I'm in the ballpark, Joe. So we easily spent $1 million just on that effort in staff and campers and the things we needed to do, and we could get back into it. So he does understand that we easily had a couple $1 million of expense before this is done for pandemic related. Short answer is we don't feel like we're in the category that they want, and OPVD is in the same boat. They were told initially no, but we're not giving up on that. We're researching it a little deeper, and we may take it another direction. Is any further questions?
No, I appreciate your answer, but I would certainly hope that we don't get punished because we serve multiple counties. I hope that can be a further discussion perhaps to be had before the board. I think Mr. Kubat said that's on the Douglas County Board agenda for May 19th. So I'd be interested to hear what the commissioner's response to that conversation would be. Thanks. I appreciate your answer, Mr. Doyle.
And we're going to work hard on not dropping the ball and making sure that we apply for reimbursement every way we can. We haven't done that in the past, and we proved after the tornadoes a couple years ago that it's possible, but it takes a lot of work. And in that vein, Shane Hunter's been leading the charge with his team to make sure that we're following all the protocols of an incident response to this and making sure that when time comes, we're at the top of the line because we're so organized and we're hitting all the marks that you need to hit. There is also an official request to Governor Ricketts through the county to make sure that the state knows that MUD has pandemic related expenses. So that's another angle that we're following carefully, but we're following it. So thank you for the questions.
Mark, this is Tim Kavanaugh. I was communicating with you last night about medical supplies, the sanitizer, masks, gloves, and I just like to get the opinion of the other board members that, you know, some of the stuff we buy in large bulk, and if the price is competitive, I'd really like to see us buy from local vendors and retailers instead of going out on the line and or the web rather, and buying online from suppliers. It's going to get critical for these local businesses, and I really would like to support them when we buy our supplies any chance we get, assuming that they are competitive in price.
Yes, Tim, I'm going to ask either Steve and or John Zellers to comment on that because I agree with you.
Yeah, thanks for the question. Actually, a lot of the pandemic PPE has been purchased locally. For example, sanitizer. As you know, getting sanitizer is almost impossible. Initially, we were able to purchase bulk in 55-gallon drums from one of our partners that provides water treatment chemicals. They were not a local supplier. However, then we were approached by a brewery in La Vista that, you know, we've all seen that on the news. You know, some of these breweries are stepping up, microbreweries. And we were able to make similar purchases with them, and it was for the exact same price that we were paying, you know, one of these national type companies. Mangelson's, we've been working with them quite a bit. They have been doing a lot of efforts on getting masks, gloves, and other PPE to the Omaha area. And we have purchased thousands of masks through Mangelson's. So yes, I truly believe that the efforts that we're making, we are conscious that we need to support the local economy as well. And I believe that we are doing that.
Great, thank you.
Tim, great suggestion. And John, quick question. John, how is our supply of PPE for right now and the foreseeable future for our employees?
Actually, I think we're looking pretty good. We probably have over 4,000 masks in stock right now. We have purchased cloth masks, which is follows the CDC guidelines. Actually, speaking of which, we were just approached this morning that some free cloth masks are available through through FEMA. So we've just entered that this morning to get about 3,500 of those. Nitro gloves, we have about 7,000 pairs on hand. Tyvek suits, thousands of those on hand. So I can't say how proud I am of the purchasing team and stepping up. We were able to do some things that I really have some doubt that we were able to do. The campers, for one, within 2 days we were able to secure 24 campers for the effort to isolate those plants, and within a week we had them set up and ready for those teams out there. So it's a collective effort, and I think we're looking actually pretty good. I'm not saying that there's still challenges. Clorox wipes is one of them, but we've been able to work our way through that. We work with our contract cleaning organization as well, as far as making sure that we're doing more cleaning throughout the day on high touch areas. So we have really it was really an effort, and right now I do think that our supply is good. We actually look at it closely every day and make determinations as to whether we need to purchase more. It's very tough to base the need, but it's a balance between what we need now, what we may need, but also not overspending as well.
And you do have masks and gloves available to the workers that have to go into folks' homes for whatever reason, so that people are not anxious about having someone in their home that's not properly garbed.
Yes, that's correct. So we have Tyvek suits, we have nitro gloves, we have foot coverings, and then we also have a stock of N95 masks and a stock of KN95 masks as well.
Great, that's really good.
John, you mentioned that hand sanitizer has been a struggle. What's the status of hand sanitizer?
So right now, just on hand, is that what you're asking?
Yes.
Yeah. So right now we have a 55-gallon drum of hand sanitizer, and then another drum that is about half full. We also have another 55-gallon drum at that microbrewery that is holding it for us in the event that we feel that we need to secure it.
Thank you.
Now the challenge we've had with hand sanitizer, the dispensers that hang on the walls, those we have not been able to secure. Those have been dedicated for medical, facilities. But the hand sanitizer we have is actually a liquid. It's not a gel. And so that provides us some additional benefits to be able to use it also for disinfectant of surfaces as well.
Hey, John, this may or may not be a question for you. It might be for Bonnie or someone else, but have we had any positive tests of staff members at MUD?
Hi, Tim. We have not. We have only had 5 employees actually qualify for a test, and all of those have been negative.
That's
So
terrific.
we do have a protocol in place to monitor for that and follow up on that if that should happen.
That's a great job. Thank you.
All right, I think we're good, and I want to thank you as well. It's very impressive the work that you've done and how well you've all worked together as a team. I am very appreciative. Are there any members of the public who are participating by phone at the downtown headquarters building who would like to make any comments? And if so, please state your name and address. Do we have any folks?
Madam Chairman, at this time, there are no people here.
All right, thank you.
Gwen,
Yes.
I have another issue that I'd like to bring before the board.
Certainly. Certainly, go ahead.
And it's really directed to probably Joe Shafford. Yesterday, I was watching TV, which a lot of us are doing lately and probably dangerous. But it was interesting. It was a financial show, and it said the interest rate for borrowing is near zero, and in some cases, negative. And I know we have some, I didn't have in my hand here the future financing bond issues that we're contemplating for infrastructure. But if we have some bond issues contemplated down the road or financing down the road, would it be a good idea to take advantage of these very low interest rates now and secure that debt and have it on hand?
Mike, we, as you know, have Piper, now Piper Sandler, used to be Piper Jaffray, that serves as a financial consultant as it relates to bond financing. And the first thing we were monitoring was the ability to refinance the 2012 bonds, because they will have a call provision. And right now, before this hit, we were kind of approaching a sweet spot. And in fact, we were gearing up to propose to do that. And then the matters changed enough where that is kind of off the table now. Relative to bond financing, we have some plan for 2021. But as you know, there's a provision where you have to spend the funds within a certain period of time after borrowing them. It's typically a 3-year window where you have to spend about 90% of it. And at the present time, the thought for bond financing would be around a lot of work to be done at the LNG plant. We're still in the process of finalizing what's going to be proposed. In fact, we're very, very close with obviously Jim Knight leading that effort to go down that path. But again, obviously I don't want to borrow funds before we need them. And I would say right now we don't have a need for bond financing. But your point's valid. We continue to, again, first and foremost, monitor refinancing that 2012 layer.
Well, you know, I know we don't have a need for them now. My point was, should we finance it, get the debt, have the cash on hand for future use? And I know we have to use it in 3 years, but is there a way to modify that and say 5 years, or go in later and say we haven't expended it? Or what's the downfall if we don't expend it?
Well, it's all regulatory, Mike, in terms of the rules around issuing tax-exempt bonds. So it kind of boils down to that. Obviously, we work with bond counsel to serve as expert advisors in that front relative to the time period to spend it. But you know, certainly we'll revisit that.
All I ask is that you guys, I know you're probably aware of it, but I think that's something we ought to look at and decide. Is it prudent to go ahead and take advantage of these low interest rates and lock it in and get the cash, even leave it on hand for a while, and then be aggressive in our spending in the future? I don't know. There's a lot of variables there, I know, but when you look at interest rates down close to zero, it's a great opportunity for our ratepayers.
Right, right. Point made. We will continue to monitor that.
Okay, that's all I wanted to make sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
Does anyone,
Chairman.
thank you, Mike. Does anyone else have any comments they want to add at this time?
Quinn, this is Jim. Just a quick question for Mark Mendenhall. I believe for our regular meeting, the closed session we will not be having. Is that correct?
Yes, sir. There is no closed session for today's meeting.
Okay, and just out of curiosity, the guidelines that the governor provided for these new, for our new meetings via Zoom, we would still be able to have closed session via Zoom. Is that correct?
We were going to, yes. I believe that there was a method for us to do that. It would not have been seamless. We would have been able to do it, but it is not necessary for today's meeting. Governor's executive order is set to expire May 31st. And so at this point, our June meeting will most likely require an in-person meeting unless the governor extends that executive order. And then we'll work with the chair and President Doyle to determine the best way to hold the June meeting.
Thank you.
Hey, Madam Chair. Madam Chairman, woman.
Mike.
It's right now it's 9/11, And as we leave the committee meeting, go into the regular board meeting, we don't have to wait till 9 o'clock. We're obviously past it. And if the other board members don't care, I just assume go right into close the committee meeting, go right into the board meeting instead of taking a break.
I was going to suggest that we don't have anyone in the lobby, and we're already past the 9 a.m. So are there any objections to doing that?
No, that's fine.
All right, the committee meetings have now concluded, and we will continue.
Open.
All right. The time is now 9:11, and I'd like to call the meeting once again to order. Agenda item number 1, roll call, please, Mary.
Bigley,
Here.
Cook,
Hello.
Friend,
Here.
Frost,
Here.
McGowan,
Here.
Howard,
Here.
Kavanaugh.
Here.
All right, thank you, Mary. Open meeting, I'd like to announce that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available in the lobby at 1723 Harney Street. The following steps have been taken to ensure compliance with the Meetings Act and the Governor's Executive Order 20-03. Access to the public and for the media is afforded by telephone that is set up in the lobby of 17 Harney Street. Director Bagley is participating remotely by the conference room at 1723 Harney Street. I'd like to reiterate the recording of today's meeting will become available on the MUD website shortly after the meeting is concluded. Agenda item number 3, Pledge of Allegiance. We will not be reciting the Pledge of Allegiance together due to the fact that each individual board member is participating in today's meeting remotely from a site location. Approval of minutes for the committee and regular board for April 16th, 2020. Do we have a motion?
I would like to make a motion to approve the minutes of the committee and regular board meeting of April 16th.
So much. Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Bagley,
Yes.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook, Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Aye.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Agenda item number 5, capital expenses. Could we have a motion, please?
This is Dave Friend, Chair of Construction and Operations. I move we approve capital expenditures as outlined in the letter from Mr. DeBoer dated April 27th.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook, Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Aye.
McGowan, Howard, Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Thank you. Item number 6, acceptance of contracts and payment final estimates.
This is Dave Friend again, Committee Chair of Construction and Operations. This was also discussed in committee. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Mr. DeBoer dated April 28th.
Second.
Second by Frost.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Aye.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Agenda item number 7, bids on contracts and materials.
Dave Friend again, Construction and Operations Committee Chair. Also, this was discussed in committee. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Mr. Zellers dated April 30th.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Agenda item number 8, main extensions. Could we have?
I believe that's also mine. I think I've got main extensions. This is Dave Friend, also discussed in committee. Move approval as outlined in the memo from Mr. O'Brien dated April 28th.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Item number
Item
9.
9. I'm sorry, Madam Chair.
Oh, that's all right. Wage and salary increases and ratifications. Motions, please.
This is Jim Begley. I move that we approve the items discussed in committee this morning and outlined in memo from Bonnie Savine dated April 30th, 2020.
Is there a second? Thank you. Roll call, please.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard, Kavanaugh.
Item 10, the retirement plan document. I move that we approve the updated retirement plan document, which discusses employee contribution rates as discussed in committee and outlined in the memo from Bonnie Savine dated May 1st, 2020.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Item 11, promotion of Vice President, Procurement and Enterprise Services. I move for the approval of John Zellers from Director of Purchasing to Vice President of Procurement and Enterprise Services, Field Operations, Safety and Security Department, as discussed in committee and outlined in the memo from Bonnie Savine dated April 24th, 2020.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Frost. Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
That concludes, other matters of district business for discussion. This concludes the agenda items for the regular board. Do any board members have any further comments?
My only comment is Chairman Howard has done a great job under trying circumstances. It's not easy to conduct a virtual meeting, so great job.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. And it is hard not to see all of you, which I miss.
Hats off to you.
Thank you. Is there any member of the public who is participating by conference phone at the downtown headquarters building who would like to make any comments? If so, please state your address. Is there one downtown?
Madam Chair, currently at this time, there are no public participants.
Thank you. Thank you for letting me know that. We now need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call, please.
Bagley,
Yes.
Cook,
Yes.
Friend,
Yes.
Frost,
Yes.
McGowan,
Yes.
Howard,
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Thank you, Mary, for bringing all of us our board book materials.
Yes, thank you.
Oh,
You are most welcome.
thank you, Mary, and good job to everyone. Everyone has done really an outstanding job in a time that's not easy for any of us. We will be together next month, and one way or another, and we are adjourned today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You all.
Bye-bye.
Bye.